Welcome to another episode, Pound for Pound Boxing Report, episode 187. I'm your host, Michael. Joining me this week, Gail from Communities Digital News, Scorsese, of course. What's going on, lady and gent?
Hey, good evening, everybody. If the World Series isn't going your way right now, listen to our show instead.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Um, Before we begin things, normally we have Daniel from the Inscriber on as a guest. He's a regular here every week. Uh, Want to kind of dedicate this show for him. A couple of days ago, I found out that his father passed away. So I want to send our best regards, our condolences from everybody here at Pound for Pound Box Report. Best regards and our condolences to him as he's dealing with the loss of his father. I just wanted to get that note out the way before we begin the show. With that being said, this is episode 187 Pound for Pound Box Report. I'm with Michael. For those who do not know, Pound for Pound Box Report is a live YouTube show, podcast, blog that discusses all things boxing. The motto is when boxing is good, we will talk about it. When boxing is bad, we will talk about it. Bottom line is, if it concerns boxing, we will talk about it. Find more information about Pound for Pound Boxing Report. The blog page is the place to go to. P4pboxingreport.wordpress.com is the link. Check the right of the blog page to find links to the pages and channels on G Plus on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, as well as links to where to listen to the show. SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher Radio, Player FM, uh, SoundCloud, Mixcloud. Let's get the show started this evening. Um, Doing a recap what went down this past weekend. Um, Starting things off in, um, give me a quick second. I'm sorry. Started things off in the junior lightweight division. Last week, we did a preview of Jezreel Corrales and Alberto Machado. Um, at that During that show, I kind of suggested that don't be surprised if an upset is in the making. Um, Machado was unknown, but having watched a video of him, I thought he was a definite live dog um, because of his power, because of his size and length. And the thing about Corrales, he's talented, he's elusive, uh, but he was vulnerable. Early on in the fight, I wasn't sure because Corrales, who came in, uh, first weigh in, he came in 4 pounds overweight. 2 hours later, second weigh in, he came in uh, over 3 pounds overweight. He was doing well first half of the fight, making Machado miss, really outboxing him, outschooling him, uh, using his experience and his skill uh, to his advantage throughout the first half of the fight. But in the sixth round, I believe, Machado caught Corrales, hurt him. Corrales came back, um, consistently hitting uh, Machado. But as I was watching the fight, speaking for me personally, I saw once Machado got to him in round six, I figured because Corrales would make mistakes, he would hurt him, he would find him again, and if he found him again, he could hurt him again. And indeed, that was the case, as he caught. Um, they kind of caught each other. It was weird. They both hit each other simultaneously with left hands, but it was just that Machado's left hand had more of a telling impact against Corrales. Uh, he went down. Um, Referee stopped the fight. Excuse me, it wasn't a left hand, it was right hand. Excuse me, it was a right hand. He went down. He seemed to get up before the count of 10, but the referee counted him out at the 218 mark. I'll go to you on this. Ladies first, excuse me. Ladies first, I'll go to you, Gail. Uh, was this a case? I've heard people make the comparison between Machado and the way he won to Andy Lee and the way he wins, where he looks like he's outskilled and outclassed, but he finds a way to land a big punch. Uh, your thoughts on that? Your thoughts on the fight, and your thoughts on the comparison that people have made, that I've seen made between Machado and Andy Lee.
Well, first of all, to the listener, please note the modesty of our show host tonight. But I want to point out tonight's show title is Saw It Coming. Saw It Coming. Now, that's not me. That's our host, Mr. Michael's brother. Did see it coming. He did, in fact, see it coming. He has every right to crow about it because we do have current panelists not joining us tonight who have in the past called upsets, and we hear about it for weeks, if not months, sometimes. Y'all know who you are. You all know who you are. But yeah, he called this one. I do think the Andy Lee comparison is fun. It's more that surprise, you know, you got a puncher's chance if you're still a live dog in there, which is why fans and others frequently get agitated when they think a fight stopped early enough that somebody could potentially stay on their feet and could potentially land a punch. In my opinion, generally the punishment that a lot of those guys take without being able to do that and the risks they're put at isn't worth it. But in this case, Machado wasn't, you know, that hurt. He was still soldiering on, and sure enough, you know, he found that moment when Corrales missed a punch, left himself open as he was swinging around, and he threaded the needle perfectly. Started it with a straight left, right, popped him right on the jaw, and then the right hook, little check right hook, finished him off. The referee count, especially when we all watched it back, if you were watching the broadcast, the referee, was it Mark Nelson? I'm trying to think who the referee was. He was a little breathless on that count. I mean, it was rocking along there really speedily. But the fact is, yeah, Mark Nelson, he was counting almost as if he was trying to beat Corrales getting to his feet. Yeah, I almost felt that tension going on. The truth is, I have no problem with the stoppage. Corrales was very wobbly. I don't really see a point in letting him get pounded that way, just to prove a point. But how many people at home were up on their feet after all the shenanigans that Corrales had pulled, including on the scale, when we can have a whole side discussion about what happens when guys don't make weight, don't even try to make weight. And the B-side guy, you know, was in a horrible position. This is their big moment. TV debut, need the money. And their opponent comes in almost a weight class overweight, doesn't give a shit about making weight because Corrales was going to move up a weight division anyway after this fight, so I hear. He was going to drop the belt anyway after this fight. So what does he care about the belt? He would rather come in heavy and ensure a win. And that stuff happens. And here you have a guy like Machado who's put in a horrible position where frequently for their own safety and their record, they should bow out. They don't feel like they can. So he and Freddie Roach thought about it, took the gamble, and it paid off. And on top of all of that, if any group of people needed a little something to brighten their spirits, it's the people of Puerto Rico right now.
Yes.
How great was that narrative that Machado said, I wanted to show my country, my countrymen, my fellow Puerto Ricans, that you can be knocked down, but you can get up. I love that. Boxing is all about personalities and storylines beyond the sport. You know, that's why a lot of us love it. Is there's always a story to be told. And that narrative, you know, if you'd seen it in a movie, you wouldn't have believed it. You know, real life, stranger than fiction every time. Good little win. The next fight is what I'm really interested in seeing. You know, what's he going to look like after having had this experience and fighting a guy, you know, his own size?
Yeah, early rumors I'm hearing he may return to the ring sometime in March, maybe in his home country of Puerto Rico. Nothing confirmed, but that's what I'm hearing early on. I go to you, Scorsese. I see Gus has joined us on the show. Thanks for joining us, Gus. Break it down the fight. Was this a case of Machado? What he did? Did he catch him with a lucky punch? Was it a case of Corrales slipping up? Could both come into play? Your thoughts?
I go with an old adage. That's time beats speed. And it's not going to beat it right away, as we saw. Corrales came out a bullet, but that bullet, even when that bullet came out fresh, that bullet was flawed. Hands always down, always leaning forward, head over the toes, doing a little bit too much, staying a little bit too close. Not enough lateral movement, but a lot of forward movement. It's very fun. But it's a way to do it right, and it's a way to do it wrong. He elects to do it wrong all the time. He gives up. That's a he gives up perfection by way of trying to be like Speedy, and that makes it an issue. You got to keep your technique, and you have to learn how to be quick while you do it. That would have made him a better fighter. That would have got him a win here, possibly. This guy literally, he's naked all the time, and you're just waiting. You're waiting. A better opponent could have probably timed him earlier. I don't know. Maybe I got to see more from Machado. But he's naked to the point where you say, if I can stand in here, and that's part of it with Corrales, you got to weather the storm because he can bring a storm. Everybody I've seen him hurt so far, fight so far, he's hurt. He brought the storm. Machado weathered it. And not only did he do that, he stopped the weather. Damn. Just flat out knocked my man out. The count, yeah, a little bit fast, but hey, that happens in boxing. That's going to happen at times. Corrales got to get back on the horse. I hear he's asking for a rematch. I don't know if that wasn't a mandatory. He gave the guy a voluntary shot. So if Golden Boy didn't have it in there for him, ouch. You know what I mean? But maybe that's not the opponent for him no way, because he's going to get hurt in those type of fights. Somebody who already timed you once and you're not making the adjustments. Hell, anybody's going to hurt him just about this of note. And I just want to say to Gail's point, not only like I know people don't want to agree with it because pound for pound is so heavy these days, and media can get a perception off better than what reality does just about. But this man literally, he didn't only just put on for his country the way he did. He's a sort of Cinderella type story. If you want to kind of think about it that way, Corrales beat the number one man, went to his country, knocked him out, done it. That can't be forgotten. He's the guy that should have received the number one credit in division. Not a Burchell at 2, not a Salido at 2, or Lomachenko at 2, or anywhere above him. Nobody. Him. And Machado just knocked out the man who knocked out the man. And I think you got to now go knock him out to call yourself the man. I think that's how boxing should work. And make the fighter fight for you instead of you fighting for him, saying he's number, because everybody else don't want to give him number one. He just earned it in the ring. Surprisingly, he just earned it. Corrales is flawed. Final point, Corrales is flawed. Machado is flawed. But he stood in there. He took it on the chin. He represented for his people. The man's a new WBA champion. As far as I'm concerned, the new number one guy at 130 pounds.
We've had this discussion on Twitter. And before I go to Gus, we had this discussion on the night. Okay, technically he is the lineal champ, but I'm not ready to give him the distinction of being the best fighter in that division, of being essentially the man. Simply because, based on what I've seen, I don't think he's the best fighter in the division. I think there are other guys in that 130-pound range who could beat him. Namely Loma, number one, and maybe a couple of other fighters in that division. So while he's lineal champion, I hear you. Again, I'm not really ready to say he is number one. He is without a doubt that dude in that division. I just can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Not based on what I saw Saturday, even though he won.
But isn't it right to say the promoter, you go get your guy? Let's just use Lomachenko.
From
He might have
hyper technically, your argument is correct.
Mm-hmm.
But that's in this case it's a very finite line here. It's a very finite line. If you look into a very narrow, truncated perspective, you're right. But if you expand the view and make a comparison between him and all the other fighters in that division, again, I'm not ready to say it's based on what I saw that he's the man, because again, even if he
It doesn't
won,
make you the
he showed
best. It
Exactly.
doesn't make you the best. It just makes you the guy who won. It makes you the guy who should rightfully sit there and say,
but
I beat the guy, now come beat me. I'm not gonna tell you his
but
schedule
but
ain't the
but
best
Agreed.
because of this.
but you said you consider him number one. Number one implies that though.
Number one, as far as accomplished what he accomplished, not accomplished only. Lineal number one. That doesn't mean you're going to be the pound for pound best thing in the sport. No, it just means your promoter got. I give his people a hand clap. Whoever represent them. To me, they did what I asked people to do. Find your way to fighting the number one man, so I can say you beat the number one guy. Now everybody else should be trying to get you. That's just how I appreciate the combativeness of boxing, the competitiveness as well. And I say that I think that's how we get the best out of it instead of getting a
See,
8 pound
then
jump
then
up in
then
weight
then
that
then
we're getting.
then, then say he beat the lineal champion. Don't say he beat the number one guy, because when you say he beats the number one guy, you sit there. People will assume just because he beats him, that makes him the number one guy.
It does.
People will take that and say, no, he's the lineal champion. That doesn't make him the number one guy. There's a difference. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, there is a difference. I mean, there's a lineage on the record books, on paper, if you will, and then there's reality in front of our eyes.
Right.
And
Yeah,
we
but
know,
But that's subjective, though.
you get that ticket in your hand. That's great. There's a historical importance to that, to continue that chain of custody, if you will. But it isn't always the top performer in the division, and it's the way the belts all shake out right now. So you have to keep that in mind. To take nothing away from Machado, what he did, that he went for it. I would much rather see these young guys, especially early in their career, where a loss doesn't hurt them that much. In fact, they often learn more, gain more from taking a fight early in their career and applying those lessons than worrying about that 0 turning to a 1. Sure as hell didn't hurt Canelo Alvarez. So, he's still a big star and a big money draw. Nobody even thinks about that loss to Mayweather. It taught him a hell of a lot. It was the smartest thing he could have done. And Machado, well, time will tell, but he's Freddie Roach has been around. He knows how these things work, and I think he's steering the kid in the right direction, and it's good for him.
I'll go to you, Gus, because I heard you say it's subjective. The problem is, because it's subjective, but probably the problem is that people will interpret that as the truth, and when people and meaning, it'll make it an absolute, and that's where the discussion, controversy too powerful of a word, but that's where the discussion will go back and forth. We're going a little bit into this, given he just won the fight. He just given the fight had just happened, just a few days off of this, and maybe we're going too deep into this right now. But the breakdown of the fight itself, Gus, your thoughts?
Yeah, it was just one of the craziest fights I've seen in quite a while. One would have expected Jezreel certainly not to have come out, that aggressively and that sort of accuracy, given that, he'd missed weight quite substantially. But he was very good from the outset. Machado has always been a fighter who may be heavy-handed, but his footwork is not adequately equipped to sort of get out of range or even come into range. He just tends to walk, very slow metronomic steps. Doesn't really pick up his feet that quickly to sort of, cut the distance if he has to. Try and rely on his height and his reach to sort of negate that distance. So Jezreel was just able to land him, with overhand lefts. We saw the left cross as well. repeatedly hurt him. But whenever Machado was able to land, you know, I think that the punch that started to work for him was that sort of right hand, the right hook. You know, we've said it many times before, Mike, you know, hands down, you know, man down. And
Damn, I was
Jezreel,
just thinking that.
and Jezreel has just suffered, you know, just the same fate as Javier Fortuna. You know, these quick twitch fighters, you know, who love to sort of bounce into range, rely on their reflexes as opposed to having their hands up. You've only got to look at, you know, Jermell Charlo last week, Mike. Before the bell rang to commence the rounds, his hands was already up in the high guard, so you could see how exactly he was coming out. You know, that's the discipline the coach has infiltrated within his fighter. But Jezreel, unfortunately, is just not learning his lesson. Whenever he drops his hands, he puts his hands down to his side. You know, he thinks he's a gunslinger, Mike. Somehow he's thinking he's battling Lee Van Cleef at the OK Corral as opposed to a prize fighter. So, you know, and I think you know the final knockdown, Mike. I think they both simultaneously landed left hands, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
Yeah.
But Machado's was obviously a hell of a lot harder. I felt the referee, you know, it was a very, very close thing, but I think, you know, Corrales definitely made the count. You know, if he's already demonstrated his ability to, you know, to get up off the counter, the referee should have, you know, given him a chance. You know, he's defending his world title. No doubt he would have probably been knocked out, but you still got to give him a chance, given that he's come back and he's hurt Machado repeatedly throughout the fight. You know, he was even dominating the round before, you know, the right hook. He just got a little bit too overconfident. Just started swinging wildly. Just no defense, Mike. Ill discipline. He's a very, very good fighter. You know, technically, I like the way he throws his punches, but you know, when you have gaping holes in your defense like that, and you're not even making adjustments in the fights, you know pretty much that this guy is hurting you with a right hook, but his main signature punch is his straight left hand. So it's only a matter of time once he starts wearing you down and hurting you repeatedly that he's going to land his left hand. And I think he was slowly trying to time it when Jezreel was actually jumping between, say, long range and mid range into punching range. So he tried it before. I think one or two hit the top of his shoulder, etc. So it was just a matter of timing. And yeah, you know, it was a beautiful, beautiful punch. I give tremendous credit to him. I'm not too interested in semantics or proclivities. You know, he's number one in the division, Mike. Lomachenko's already got his ass beat, so he's not number one. I'd put him number 3. I'd put Burchelt number 2. Machado is number 1. You know, he beat the man who held the belt for 6 years. So he's number 1. If people dispute it, they got to fight him. But Lomachenko's people just want to lowball fighters. He wants to dick around. You know, he wants to beat shot fighters or fighters who are, you know, suffering with inactivity or bringing up fighters from 2 weights below. You know, some bitch ass shit. So yeah, Machado's number 1 as far as I'm concerned. And I think you know,
this man never disappoints, man.
I think you know, a fight between him and Miguel Burchelt is you know, that's for the undisputed, you know, number 1 at the division. Hopefully when his hand recovers, you know, they can get that fight on. You know, and I think it'll be a classic Mexican versus Puerto Rican fight, you know, a southpaw orthodox fighter, both heavy-handed fights. I think that could potentially be a fight of the year.
Good point. Mexico, Puerto Rico.
Let's move on to the undercard of that bout. Bull Andrade, Demetruis Andrade, former, well, I think he's technically still junior middleweight champion, or has a belt or form of a belt in that division. Made his middleweight debut of a guy by the name of Fox. 6'5" middleweight. I've never seen anything like that. Scored, easy win. It was predicted, but more than the fight is outside the fight itself, we all knew what was going to happen. Didn't have a distinguished resume. Fox coming in. Let's focus on Andrade and his future at 160 pounds. You got Canelo and Triple G. You got Billy Joe Saunders who's fighting David Lemieux in December. You got Charlo Jamal moving up to the middleweight division. And I'm just going to open the question, just open it up for everybody and anybody who wants to respond. Please do. Where does Boo Boo Andrade? How does he fit in this middleweight division?
Hopefully, at the end of somebody punched, knocked out.
I couldn't give a fuck about him.
Wow.
I just don't think he's gonna do right. I don't think he ever get it on the right path. It's up to him, Mike. It's at the point now where I pushed the button so long, pushed the buggy behind him, and he let you down. Wouldn't even do interviews. Wouldn't even speak to people. It's like, yo, okay, it's your job to entertain us, not our job to want to be entertained by you. We don't supposed to want. It's just supposed to be there, and you supposed to give it. You pick this profession, and all good luck to him, just like any fighter. But it's a personal job that you pick. You got a team behind you that you select. Other than that, man, you did what you were supposed to do with that ring. Let's see if you can do it within another 4 months again instead of 12. He fought 2 times this year. Hell froze over already off of that shit alone. So let's see, 5 months. Let's see if you can do it. 5 months, you back in there. Hell, 2, 3. Let's see. Then you can be taken serious. From right now, man, it's fucking disappointing.
Gus, Gail, your thoughts?
Mike, I didn't see the fight. I wasn't even, interested. But I've lost all respect with this guy, Mike. You fuck around for a whole year doing nothing. Then you finally go over to Germany to fight Jack Holkay. What for? You're giving up the belt and moved up the division. That's just picking up a weak trophy. That's some fake ass shit. I've got no time for this punk, Mike. I hope he gets knocked out ASAP. Sayonara. That's all I got to say.
Wow. Tell us how you really feel. I think Gail has stepped out for a minute. Once you come back, I'll ask her about Andrade.
He should have fought Erislandy Lara, Mike. He was fucking around. This guy can just make excuse after excuse. That fight could have been made very, very easily. I don't think Erislandy would have run away from that fight. No chance.
Certainly would have been better for both, particularly for Andrade and for Lara, because that fight against Gaucher, what was the point in that? But then again, as I said last week, you can't blame him. Blame the folks who made that fight and decided to make that a main event. That's who you blame. The Andrade fight, the Machado fight, this was part of a triple header on HBO. The first bout of that triple header was kind of take the late broadcast from Belfast, and I'll go to you on this one, Gus. Unification bout at 118 pounds. Ryan Burnett fighting Zhanat. I'm not going to even try to pronounce the last name because I'll butcher it. Burnett scored a unanimous decision win, 119-110 on one card, 119-109 on one card, 118-110 on the second, and 116-112 on the third. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to see all of the fights. So that's why I'm going to you and Scorsese and Gail. Your interpretation, your breakdown of the fight. How did Burnett look? As I said last week, I was kind of on this fight because if it's true that Tete is in line to fight the winner, Tete would beat both of them. No doubt my mind would ease. So yeah, they had this fight, but if they get in the ring next with Tete is going to be the unified champion, 118 pounds. Your thoughts, Gus?
Yeah, and I thought the Tete fight and Burnett fight was done, Mike. They'd come to a provisional arrangement Tete was even willing to go over to Sky to fight. Frank Warren had more or less given him his blessing. Would have gone over to Belfast as well. So it's disappointing, but Mike, you didn't miss a tremendous amount. It was certainly in the UK, it was quite a highly anticipated unification fight. But sadly, it was an immensely disappointing fight, which was marred just by excessive clinching throughout the fight, which just destroyed any fluidity. We really should have had a very young, technically gifted, quick-twitched fighter in Ryan Burnett against, just a robust pressure fighter in Zhakiyanov, who's, tough, had a tremendous win over, Richie Warren. But Ryan and Adam Booth, I think, certainly calibrated the game plan, knowing that he's going to be pretty relentless and certainly hard to stop. And I don't think Ryan had any sort of sufficient punching power to try and fault him. So instead, he tried to neutralize him just by holding him excessively, Mike. It really did have shades of Vladimir Klitschko and Alexander Povetkin, one of the most disgusting fights in history, certainly from Vladimir's point of view. Ryan Burnett just didn't even let Zhakiyanov, unload anything on the inside. Ryan was quite sharp, fired some nice straight punches, as you would expect, because he's a very, very gifted fighter. But why a fighter has to resort to these sort of tactics when they clearly have the boxing ability, it just sickens me, Mike. It makes me want to go back into my cave permanently. You look forward to a fight like this, and just destroyed any sort of visceral pleasure that you could have taken from the fight. Both fighters hardly landed, I think, more than I'd say there'd be less than sort of 30-35 flush shots Mike landed on the chin. There was a lot of missing. There was, to be fair, there was some clinching from Zhanat as well on the inside, but the majority of it was precipitated by Ryan. One could say it's a wise game plan for him, knowing that maybe he is at a disadvantage against a tough pressure fighter. So what do? They just try and neutralize. It's a negative tactic, but some people would constitute it as a wise strategy. At times, even the free arm, Mike, he would lock his right hand, try and punch and then hold his left hand as well. That's illegal tactics. As long as if you're fighting out of the clinch with one hand, which is perfectly fine. But when you're trying to neutralize a guy with both of his hands, then I don't know what the hell the referee was doing. He should have really started issuing warnings, round 2, and started deducting points from round 3, as far as I'm concerned. I would have probably have disqualified Burnett, Mike. I was just disgusted. And I really do hope now, that Frank Warren can make a considerable offer now. 2 belts are there. I think Zalani, from what I hear as well, is a little bit pissed off that fight didn't happen. It's aggrieved him a little bit. So he's determined on fighting that, on trying to get that fight happening. But maybe Eddie Hearn just wants to stay away. They realize this guy is going to be too difficult of a proposition, and with the WBC belt, which is currently vacant, looks like Eddie Hearn is trying to target that route, Mike. So all in all, you didn't miss much, Mike. It was just thoroughly disappointing affair.
Tete, by the way, who's fighting on the instead of getting this fight, he's going to be fighting on the 18th on that big card in Belfast with Frampton and forgot the other fighters who are on that card. But yeah, like I said, let's hope he gets this fight. Let's hope he gets this fight, because based on what you're describing to me, based on what I've seen from from Burnett. I mean, just this easy work if Tete ever gets in the ring with him. Scorsese, if you saw the fight, your impressions on what went down. Mute your mic, Scorsese, if you're there.
Oh man, I was really talking, man. Really giving my opinion. But yeah, I was invested in this fight because some Twitter trolls. Basically, I saw Burnett training with can't remember the guy's name right now, but his trainer's pretty well known over there. I can't remember the name. Gus, you got it?
Ricky Hatton, yeah.
No, train. That's Zhanat's trainer. Burnett's trainer.
It's the David Hayes' old trainer. What's his name? Adam Booth.
There you go. Exactly. I don't know why it slipped me. I saw them training and I saw how low he was keeping his lead hand in the session. I was like, man, I just commented. I said he's keeping that lead hand low about 90% of the time. And he fights like that too. And I was like, if he fought a Tommy Hearns level opponent, like a person just level right hand, I thought he'd be knocked out. And the Twitter trolls just came to me, man, you don't know shit. You don't. I'm like, okay. I said, this dude Zhanat, he's about to fight. I know this. He whooped the hell out of Rasheed Warren after he got off the canvas, and basically Rasheed Warren, got took to school at it. The guy took to work, daddy-daughter day type thing, daddy-son day at work. He got took to work, and I'm thinking, well, let's see how low your hands can be here, and I'm actually interested in the fight, unification. I said, okay, I'm gonna give these people a chance, and just like Gus is mentioning. I went into this with expectations. The crowd did, and they were fine with it because it was a hometown fight. My question is, was it a hometown ref? The ref steps in the first round and steps in hard in the first round, says something about the holding. But then it goes on throughout how can you be tough in the first round and 10th round, 9th round? You're saying nothing. Where did you go? Where did this great referee go that was going to give us the action? To me, that made it feel like, okay, I'm going to show a little positive. People going to think it's okay. And then I'm going to fade away slowly. Gus is not lying when he tells you this man literally hugged this man's other arm throughout the whole fight, just about repeatedly held his arm and would hit. He would hold his arm, let him go and hit right away. It's like, I'm going to grab you. I'm going to hit you with the same arm I was just holding you with, and you're going to try to pull it back. Now, in between that, I'll say this about Burnett. He threw some nice hooks to the body. I think it was a left hook to the body. It was beautiful. But it was caught up in the funk. It was a diamond in the rough. And I never found the diamond because all this nastiness just going on around it just made me say, my God, man, one man's trying to work. You're the bigger, younger, stronger man in Burnett. And Zhanat just sitting there like, yo, like, can I work? Yes, you're shifty, you're hard to hit, but let's see if you can do that without all the hugging, without all the grab. Like, boxing got to do something, man. That wasn't a boxing match. That was a match that Burnett was just scheduled to win already. We didn't even have to have that fight. They should just take it off the schedule and just say, give him the 2 belts, because there was no point in seeing that. We did not find out who was going to win that fight. We found out that this was a hometown bout. And that dude who came to the States to another guy's hometown to win his belt, home state anyways, to win his belt, Rasheed Warren's home state, Ohio. He came there, won his belt. Then he goes to the hometown of Burnett to unify belts in boxing, just threw 2 middle fingers at him. I don't get it, man. I don't get it.
Like I said, it's one thing you can do to resolve all this. Just put him in the ring with Tete. And let him be a unified champion, and let him move on, because that's the only thing I get from this. If it's true they're gonna fight Tete, he'll just resolve all this, and he'll just be unified champion, because he's clearly better than I thought he was clearly better than Burnett. I thought he was clearly better than ZZ, and based on what both of you are describing me, my mind hasn't changed from my original thought. He's better than both of these guys. Let him fight. I guess in this case, Burnett sees as the winner. Let him beat him. Let him knock him. Let him knock Burnett out. He'll just be done with it and move on. That's my only thought. Move on to the cruiserweight tournament. Gassiev fighting Zwartzik in Newark, New Jersey. Gassiev, he won. and he won. And I'll go to you on this one, Scorsese. It wasn't just the fact that he won. It wasn't just the fact that he knocked Wlardarczyk out in the third round. It was the punches that he knocked him out with. Beautiful uppercut to set things up, left uppercut, followed quickly by a hook to the body. Put Wlardarczyk down in a world of hurt, and he didn't get up. One of the best knockouts that I've seen this year. Not just because of the impact, but the devastating manner in which he landed. The combination of punches of left hand. That's what you call educated left hand, folks. That's what I mean by educated left hand. For him to shoot an uppercut and follow right back quickly to the body, short shot with power. That's what you call an educated left hand. And it sets up a pretty juicy matchup with Ortigo's. We saw how impressive he was in his fight in the cruiserweight tournament. So yeah, Gassiev, as far as I'm concerned, candidate for KO of the year, Scorsese.
Not only educated, it was vicious. It was the school bully and it was the valedictorian at the same time. That thing was fierce. Left uppercut, liver shot. How you like it? And old boy just replied, "I'm going to bed. I don't like it at all." I didn't get to see the whole fight because it was right on during the HBO, and I was like, well, why watch it again? That basically shows me what happened when the man was on the ropes before he had even got hurt with this shot. He was running from the punches. I don't have to watch it to understand what was going on. It was an older man, didn't want none. And he walked on to him and he put him out. And I know he could punch. I know he's a hard puncher. I'm just not sure about my matchup going into the future. I know the Cuban's a little bit of the bigger guy. Those long range punches, somebody says they remind him of not only Sonny Liston, the Cuban reminds them of Sonny Liston and Larry Holmes at the same time. And that to do that at the same time, had those same thoughts. Shit. How you gonna beat that guy? Gassiev got a tough road ahead of him. I don't give a damn if HBO is on for 3-4 hours. I won't be missing that one for this. I won't be doing it. That fight I gotta see.
Let me see. Are you back, Gail?
I am back.
Okay.
I am back.
We're talking Gassiev.
Yes, you are.
His win over Wlardarczyk in the cruiserweight tournament. You first showed me the highlights of the knockout. Again, as I said before, it's one of the knockouts of the year. You might have to mute your mic, Gus, because I'm hearing some echo in the background. Since you're the one who first showed me that, I'm gonna give you the opportunity to talk about it now. That was a mean combination. That was a mean two-punch left hand combination to take him out.
Absolutely a no mercy combination. This is not a man who wants to send someone out gently. He is a force of nature. And way back when I first saw him, I recall seeing him on a Spike PBC card. And he was, I think, 21 or 22 a couple of years ago. And I didn't know who he was. Watching him walk across the ring, or I should say stalk across the ring, I thought, damn, that dude walks around. He walks around the ring like Triple G. And then I see Abel Sanchez over the corner, and I think, well, okay, oh, no kidding. No wonder he walks around like that. No wonder he's obviously been watching him. And as I watch him delivering punches, he didn't deliver a knockout blow, but he had his opponent on the ropes and was wailing away, and the bell rings, and the guy just keeps going. And he lands a few more shots, not the best thing to do. And it ended up, I think, being a no contest eventually because of that. But what it showed me is here's a guy who was absolutely relentless. He did not even hear the bell. Referee was a non-factor to him. And I later talked to Sanchez and said, well, saw your big boy Gassiev. And he said, oh, yeah. And he laughed. He said, he's rough around the edges. He said, but we're going to get him there. And here we are a few years down the road, and he wasn't kidding. That guy's the real deal. Now, I cannot wait to see him face Ortigo's. And we had a little impromptu showdown, face-off in the ring because Dorticos was there. And so they decided to, do the thing and face off. And there was a little trash talk going on. And Dorticos is saying that he's the real knockout doctor and he's going to prescribe a prescription for Gassiev for some ibuprofen, which he's going to need after he gets knocked out. And that's the kind of stuff I love to hear. Now, what's so interesting about this tournament, your other two opponents are Alexander Usyk and Marius Briedis. So with Usyk, Briedis, Gassiev, and Dorticos, you have 4 cruiserweights who are all at this point undefeated. All of them. 3 of them are going to be standing a few months from now with a loss. Only one guy of those 4 is going to emerge with a perfect record and having won this tournament. And this is exactly what the World Boxing Super Series is about. It's been genius. I hope that our semifinal fights get good television exposure, good venues. Those have not been determined yet. But the finals are going to apparently be in Saudi Arabia, which is interesting to say the least. So I'm looking forward to the next round. And if these guys end up anywhere within a few-hour drive of you listening, you need to get there. I'm just telling you right now, don't pass up the chance to see this.
What you said, Saudi Arabia? Where's the semifinal?
That's where the final will be. Now we've got 2 semifinals still to go.
Where you say they are?
The 2 semifinal locations have not yet been determined. No dates or locations yet. I'm guessing that you're going to see Gassiev and Dorticos somewhere here in the United States, and I'm thinking you might see Usyk and Briedis in Europe, but they could be here too. I think the audience in Europe, Eastern Europe, will probably turn out for that fight, given that Usyk is part of this, Ukrainian armada that's here. So they might place that fight. Could even be in Kiev. Who knows? They'll get a big turnout there. But I do think Gassiev Dorticos will be in the U.S. somewhere. So keep an eye on that. And then the final is in theory, it's going to be in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. They bid for the fight.
Yeah, that was announced last week. I'll go to you, Gus. Reflect on Gassiev's KO win, emphatic KO win, and the tantalizing prospect of the semifinal against Dorticos later on this year.
Yeah, Mike.
Early next year. I'm sorry, early next year.
You know how they how in the Olympics and stuff like that they give fighters a bye. He should have been given a bye to the next round because this was never really going to be a competitive fight. It was the easiest money I won. Saying that, the odds even for a Murat Gassiev knockout, Mike, you were lucky to get even 3-1 even on a knockout between rounds 1 and 6. So even the bookies knew that. Up against a fighter, who was very good maybe 10 years ago. By the way, doesn't Murat Gassiev, doesn't he remind you of Zangief from Street Fighter, that big Russian?
You're right. You're right.
Yes.
The size, his looks, his beard, his mustache, like.
Yeah, that guy's the only proper description of him, I think, would be badass mofo.
You're absolutely right about it. I didn't think about it. Yeah.
I think he looked just like Materbiev, to be honest with you.
Well, he looks like that too.
Is he living in the States now, Gal?
Yeah, he lives and trains in Big Bear, California, up at the summit with Abel and Golovkin and that whole posse.
This we know he's a extremely young fighter who had a very, very, very short amateur career. So you can see there's a lot of rudimentary elements to his boxing. He certainly doesn't have any coordination yet. He's not fluid, but he's certainly aggressive. And I think he calls himself Iron, if I'm not mistaken. And that name certainly has some distinction with fighters in the past, even way before Mike. Some great fighters in the past who adopted that name.
That is correct. That is what he's taken as his nickname. Yeah, he only had 25 amateur fights, which we assume a lot of these Eastern Europeans have had hundreds of amateur fights. 25.
Yeah.
So that's why he's so rough around the edges still. Although certainly a lot more polished than what I saw him 2+ years ago. So he's making good progress. Problem is he doesn't get many rounds in.
Yeah, and even at the point of the knockout, it didn't look like, from my understanding, and I could be mistaken, but he when he attacked Wlardarczyk, I don't think he got the maximum leverage on his punches. I think he might have been a little bit surprised at the ease of which the guy just sort of went down, capitulated, clearly didn't want any more.
I think that's a good point. I think you're right.
He lifted his hands back up to his face after he hit him and stepped backwards and broke range. And was just like, dude, I was ready to keep going. What the hell?
Well, he didn't need to. I mean, and Wlardarczyk, my Falkenthal personal rule is if you fall forward after being hit, you're done. Guys, when they fall forward, their face is parallel to the ground. It's bad. And they usually don't recover. Wlardarczyk had never been knocked down or stopped, ever. At 36 years old, after 14 years of being a professional, that puts Gassiev's accomplishment in perspective. And that also might be why he backed up, assuming I can't stop this guy, nobody else has. He did.
Yeah, because I saw even after he was trying to go to a neutral corner. He literally nodded his head when he turned around. He smiled, almost thinking, this guy was a pussy all along, just thinking. Yeah.
Now that's that little mean streak you want these guys to have, to take satisfaction in their work. You look back and admire your work, which, is a guy on the ground crawling around. And some people don't consider that too pretty, but that's the way the sport goes.
Indeed. Let's move on to Tokyo. This fight took place Sunday after the triple header on HBO and whatnot. While Murata N'Dam rematch was the highlight, the main event of that card, the card aired on, that fight aired on, I think, ESPN2, one of the ESPN channels early Sunday morning. I want to focus, and I'm going to go to you, Gus, on the undercard about, namely a guy by the name of Higa. Daigo Higa, WBC flyweight champion, won the belt earlier this year in very impressive fashion. Juan Hernandez stopped him in the 6th round. Higa made his first defense against a French fighter by the name of Masson, stopped him in 7, dominated him throughout. I want you to talk about that fight, Gus, but also want to give the opportunity to disclose what possibly may be up next for Higa, which I'm a bit surprised by. But talk about the fight itself and explain what could be up next for Higa.
Yeah, this a fighter who certainly needs a lot more exposure on television, because he just has the ability, also the punching power that could certainly excite all those who think that lower weights is just sort of one-dimensional styles. Not having to go at Scorsese, but just saying. Yeah, he's I know our good friend Nauta describes him as like a sort of a lower weight Golovkin, and yeah, there are certainly some similarities, and he broke onto the ranks, beating a fighter who I personally had in my top 10. Juanito Navarrete, who beat Nalpan Paul Chokchai for the WBC belt, and had a fantastic resume, a good fighter, but the way Higa dismantled him, it really did shock me as well. Just ferocious punching power, just neutralized the guy who could certainly punch on the fly, which a lot of people don't have that ability. Certainly pivoting off his back foot. But Higa, it a good fight, Mike. You know, I thought, you know, Masson was very, very scrappy. You know, he took a lot of punches, but certainly in this fight, Mike, you know, Higa, that, you know, the way he was just unloading with his uppercuts, you know, it was almost consecutive combination punchings just by uppercuts. It was almost a bit crazy what he was doing at times in there. I think he was really having fun in there. What he needs to watch out, Mike, is the way he gets into range. He'll tend to shift towards a high guard, then almost like step to the left, almost like duck under the punch. Masson was obviously trying to fight that overhand right straight, knowing that whenever he had his guard up, that he would try and duck underneath the punches to get it almost inside the pocket, where he would then try and unload with his uppercuts. So he needs to vary that tactic, because I felt personally got a little bit, you know, repetitive. I think he was trying to read what he was doing. Certainly was having some you know, I think in the third and the fourth, when he began to time Higa a little bit, but Higa would you know, shorten his punches, certainly his right hand to the body as well. Fired that, you know, from a very, very odd angle. He would always, when he was tucking his head down, knowing that Masson was coming with the overhand right, you know, he would try and step to the left and then just fire that shorthand right, but he wouldn't hook it. It would almost be like a bolo punch underneath, you know, and that certainly was hurting, you know, Masson. But yeah, he was, you know, certainly not a you know, a surprising. I thought he would have probably have got him out a little bit earlier, but I think he needs to do a little bit of rounds, Mike. He's a very, very young champion. Certainly needs a little bit more variation to his styles. You know,
yeah, he's only 22, so yeah.
Yeah. So what's, you know, the division, if we look at it, you know, 1-1-12, you know, they're talking about his potential next fight could be against Mohammed Wasim, the TNT fighter from Pakistan originally, but based out in South Korea, but trains predominantly with Jeff Mayweather in Vegas. So he's a very geographic speaking fighter, but a good young fighter. Certainly like the way he's coming up as well, and even switch hit as well. So he will definitely present a few different options. You kind of think that fight will probably be back in Japan if it materializes. I guess, Mike, you know, there's no need to rush him into any unifications yet. Personally, I think, although I think I would probably certainly favor him at 1-1-12, but I don't think there's any particular rush. I think he can have, you know, get rid of his mandatories, you know, get a few more variations. I'd like him in the ring with a few more southpaws as well. I think because he's predominantly focusing his attacks on the left-hand side coming in. So I think a southpaw will also try and vary his game. Somebody who can get laterally. So if Mohammed will try and switch here a little bit, I think it's just a, you know, a very, very good opponent. But very exciting, you know, tremendous punching power. Just looks like one of those guys who can just, you know, shatter ribs even at the lower weights. So I just think, hopefully, with, you know, was this fight also on the was this fight also televised in the States, or was it just the Murata fight?
I don't know, because I didn't get up to see the Murata fight.
It was only the Murata fight.
Okay.
Okay, that's a, you know, that's a little bit disappointing, isn't it? But
well,
yeah,
you know, it's football Sunday in the United States. Lord help you if you divert from that for 1 minute longer than you have to. So I'm sure ESPN wanted to get back to their endless prognostications. God forbid, but we get 20 more minutes of, you know, boxing.
Nelson watch this fight, because if he's you know, trying to move to some more flyweight cards, and this is a guy who can quite easily come up to 115 as well and challenge.
The reason I expressed surprise, Gus, what you was telling me about a rumored future opponent in Wasim, is that Wasim, he's been fighting at junior bantamweight, even bantamweight, basically all of his career, ranked at 115. A lot of his fights has been at above that. I know he's fought as high as, I believe, 118, maybe even 119. 118 for sure. So I'm wondering, could he get down to that weight? Can he be comfortable at 112?
Certainly, when you're talking about 6 pounds between a sort of a mean of about 114, 115, yeah, you're looking at 7-8% of your body weight then.
Yeah, for
of an increase in sort of muscle mass. So
yeah,
it's quite.
People will look at. I was going to say, people will look at it and say, "Oh, it's just 6 pounds. It's just this, that many pounds." But when you look at the weight itself, the frames of these guys, percentage wise, that's a good bit to take off.
Yeah. Because 10 pounds between 105 and 115 is just 9.5% of your full body weight. So yeah, so you're talking about 7%, which is equivalent to guys like shifting between a stone and a half. Pound, body to weight ratio. So yeah, it's and that weight, Mike, because your body's the propensity to deplete your water is pretty non-existent, because your body's got to have at least 40% of its mass has to be water at those lower weights. Otherwise, these guys would naturally dehydrate a lot. So there's not a lot you can do in the sense of draining yourself. You've not really got that much muscle mass to do so. So it can be very, very dangerous for guys to try and shift 6-7 pounds back and forth at those weights. It's a very, very good question. He seems to think he can get back down to 112. I'm not sure what his rankings are like at 115, 118. I don't think he's even ranked in the top 10 from when I looked.
I can look it up right quick. Proceed, Gus.
Yeah, so if yeah, I'm not sure, Mike. It's one of those. Probably just comes down to what Jeff Mayweather thinks as well. But personally, I it's certainly a fight that certainly intrigues me, Mike. I think there's a definite good clash of styles there. I think Wasim definitely has the reflexes and the boxing ability to trouble him. If he can certainly make the weight and he's strong at that weight, but I'm not sure whether he can withstand, the extra zip on Iga's punches. Certainly his body attacks. He's going to target that body just to slow down his movements. Yeah, but not sure whether that'll happen. But from what I'm hearing, if that fight happens, it's got to happen by I think they're saying February or March of next year.
Yeah, but I'm looking at it. I'm looking at the rankings now, and I stand corrected. He is ranked, but he's ranked at flyweight, 7 according to the IBF. So apparently, if they have him ranked there already, apparently they think that he can get down to that weight, even though he's been fighting above that weight basically all of his career. So yeah, there you go. I'll go.
Kal Yafai.
Yeah, exactly. I'll go to you, Gail Scorsese, quickly. If any of you two saw the Higa fight, please comment quickly. If not, we can move on to Murata and N'Dam too.
Let's talk Murata and N'Dam.
All right, let's go ahead. Main event of this card was Ryota fighting N'Dam. Rematch of a controversial Ryota Murata Hsaan N'Dam, controversial first time out. Anybody with eyes could see that Murata had won that first fight, but they gave the fight to N'Dam. And even the WBA was like ashamed of the result and was like, you know what, my bad, our bad. Let's put these guys in the ring again. And they did indeed fight Sunday in Tokyo. Murata dominated, stopping in 7. I'll just open up for anybody here on the panel. Please discuss.
It's so pleasant and so satisfying to see one of these wrongs that happen in boxing be righted in exactly the right way, because shit does happen in this sport. It just does. And the WBA immediately, as you said, suspended the 2 judges who had outrageous cards in favor of N'Dam in the first fight, which no other human being could possibly understand. Set them aside. I don't recall what their exact punishment was, but they got their fannies paddled, and they ordered an immediate rematch. Good for them. So there was a lot of anticipation for this fight, and Murata was motivated. He had the hometown crowd behind him, and he just let N'Dam have it. N'Dam never went down, although he came close. And there were some times where you had to wonder, did he touch a glove down? What's going on? But he was taking a pretty serious beating despite staying on his feet. Credit to his toughness. And I was very surprised. Not surprised that his corner called the fight, but called it as early as they did after the 7th round. Frequently, you'll let them go, maybe closer towards 8, 9, or 10, to where there's so little chance of you coming back on the scorecard. It's just not possible. Well, they let N'Dam go just past 7, meaning, he would have had to win all 5 rounds and then some to come back. He would have had to score a knockdown at the very least to make it even. And they called it. And Murata was extremely emotional over his win, and good for him. At the end of the fight, you kind of brush your hands off and say, well, good. That's job well done. That's that. And look forward to seeing him again.
I'll go to you, Scorsese. And Gus, not just talk about the fight itself, but I'm hearing that after an initial defense in Japan, the plan, much like with Inoue, is to bring Murata here to the United States. I asked the question earlier about Andrade vis-a-vis and his status with the current crop of middleweights. I'll ask that same question of Murata based on what you saw in the rematch and based on early word that they plan to bring him to the United States.
Brings more to the middleweight division for the States. I guess he need to come over here, since the money, if you're looking at the money divisions, take out heavyweight and Joshua, or basically Joshua, you're gonna have to go where it's bred at, and that's here in the States. Triple G, Canelo. Even you see Billy Joe Saunders kind of flocking this way, even though it's north of the border, but I guess they feel Lemieux can make money there too. This is where division that it's a smart move. I guess it's going to be all ESPN for him. I don't know how that's going to play out yet with ESPN and Bob Arum, and are they going to really work with HBO? Is there going to be another network dispute thing going on? What's really going to go on? But I like the decision. I mean, at least another puncher in the division. He looks solid, keep his hands up. Could be a little high at times, but why not?
Same question I posed to you guys.
Mike, I didn't actually I missed this fight. I saw the Higa fight live on Japanese TV, but there was no announcing of when the card was due to start, etc. So
I'll share the fight with you after the show, Gus.
Okay.
But anyway, the news, in spite of that, the news that it looks like they're going to bring Murata here to the United States, and from what I'm hearing, it's going to be through a venture with Top Rank. So you can see why the fight was aired on ESPN. But anyway, your thoughts on him? They bringing him to the U.S.
It's good, Mike, because the middleweight division has been one of the most whack in the history of boxing, so long. So finally, we're getting a little bit of influx now. Even fighters who are moving up from 154 to 160 pounds as well, which is excellent as well. But I'm Mike, what sort of annoyed me by the whole situation is the WBC. I think the WBA. I think that it's just a case of clusterfuck after clusterfuck with them. Number one, when you've tried to consolidate the belt and then you recycle it back out to Japan, fueled by the WBA, who are trying to obviously set up a new office in Tokyo. So they're trying to obviously increase all of their political, their voting system over there. So they had no jurisdiction in just sort of ordering a rematch. If you're setting a precedent, then you've got to do it for all incorrect decisions across the board. It doesn't matter whether it's extremely wide on the cards or what. So they've not helped matters. Number one, this belt should have been eliminated. Period. When Golovkin and Jacobs fought, that was the whole purpose of that fight, was to consolidate the WBA belt. So very it's almost like fuck all of the belts. Who gives a shit? He's a very good fighter. Olympic pedigree. A welcomed addition to the middleweight ranks. I think he can give a lot of fighters a hell of a. I'd put him, if he fights Demetruis Andrade, Mike. I think Murata kicks his ass. Period. I think he beats David Lemieux. I think he beats all of them. I think he'll give even Gennady Golovkin a hell of a fight. I think he's got power. I think he's got a tremendous chin, Mike. I've seen him take overhand rights, lefts to the chin, hardly even wobble him. So I think he's got the punch resistance. Yeah, bring him over him, Mike. Billy Joe, he's not going to beat Billy Joe. Billy Joe is number one in the division as far as I'm concerned.
You lost me, Gus.
Oh my God, I have to stand up right now and say that.
Why y'all can't give Billy his credit? He going to Canada. Billy going to Canada.
Yeah, well, you know why? Because Montreal's really, really nice at Christmas time.
And
Billy Ho is going to get his ass kicked.
I'm not even going to call him. I'm not even going to call him Billy Ho, because look, I think he beats Lemieux. Lemieux is limited. All he does is punch. He's not really a boxer, but at the same time,
that's all you need to do if you're a good puncher.
At the same time, I haven't been impressed. I was impressed in what I saw from him and Andy Lee. I haven't been impressed with anything from Billy Joe, what I've seen since. Monroe didn't come to fight.
He took the fight out of him.
No. Look, man. His son took the fight out of him when he hit him in the nuts. Monroe didn't come to fight. Akavov, what was that? Someone still explain that to me. So no, he has to prove more, Billy Joe. And first of all, that's number one. Secondly, and most importantly, he has to fight consistently and show that he can stay in shape for more than one fight. Do that, and then I can give something for Billy Joe Saunders. But
the penny has dropped there, though, Mike. He's now living. He's away from Hatfield, where he lives with his wife and his kids. He's moved out of there and he's living in Sheffield, and he's living opposite Brendan Ingle, the head of the gym himself. So they're keeping him away from all of his. Billy Joe just has a tendency to go out. He doesn't drink alcohol, Mike, but he just tends to go out with all of his lot back in Hatfield, playing snooker, drinking pints of Pepsi and eating Mars bars. Just he loves it at the snooker halls, and they just tend to eat crap food over there. So it's just poor, ill discipline from that side. But I think the penny's dropped. He's in Sheffield. He's training pretty much every day. They say, Dominic Ingle does say, when he's actually in the gym, he works tremendously hard, harder than certainly all of the other fighters, So, yeah, I think you'll even see a far more improved performance once he gets to Canada as well.
Well, like I said, we will see. We will see. I just have to see it because he hasn't given me full reason
I'm Team BJ.
to trust him. And also, you know, he's not going there. He's going there because of the money, number one, and because his let's face it, part of the reputation is taking a hit. And what better way to restore your reputation a bit than to beat up on Lemieux? And that's what he's going to do.
But remember, Mike, for all the guys that give him grief, Billy Joe actually signed the contract to fight Golovkin in Kazakhstan. That's fact. Nobody can dispute that. You can ask Tom Loeffler. He'll agree to it as well. But what happened, Golden Boy said to Golovkin that if you took that fight, you know, in Kazakhstan, then the Golovkin and Canelo fight in September would have never transpired. But Billy Joe didn't know that, you know, so he definitely signed. He was willing to go over there. So all those people that just continue to shit on it, they don't even know their facts.
I think the kid real good. I'm not gonna joke, man. I think Billy Joe can 7-5 anybody he wants to 7-5 any given night. I am not kidding you. David Lemieux might get to 10-2 though, or worse.
I don't know
He
about
could
that.
get knocked out, Billy Joe. It's just one of those fights. Billy Joe should outbox him, but you know he could get knocked out. It's just one of those.
But yeah, I'm surprised more in like your assessment of Murata, how you think so highly of him. I didn't know. You thought so highly of him.
Yeah.
So you think he'll give anybody competition, including Golovkin and Canelo?
Definitely. Absolutely.
No real news events. So what I want to do is, while we have time, just go ahead to the previews, previewing what's happening this weekend. Main fights I want to focus on is what's happening in Cardiff. Headline, of course, by Anthony Joshua fighting Carlos Takam. I forgot his original opponent's name. He dropped out. Takam is a substitute. Doesn't matter though, because I think he's going to make easy work of Takam. Takam is shorter fighter, thicker fighter than his first opponent, or his original opponent. But height-wise, Joshua is just too tall, too long. I think Takam can take a decent punch, but again, a showcase fight, and how can you not blame him following what we saw from Joshua against Klitschko, that terrific fight. So it is what it is. Just keep the Anthony Joshua train rolling. Anyone else think differently?
Yeah, I got to dip out in about 5 minutes, so I'm just gonna say, well, probably quicker. I'm just gonna say, yeah, that train gonna keep on rolling pretty smoothly. Takam looks to be a little too small of a heavyweight, and his best work itself seems to be the inside, and that seems to be one of Joshua's best spots too. I don't doubt that you might see Joshua overconfident and hurt from a punch that comes up, but finishing him, no, not gonna happen. Shout out to Takam for going to take his shot. You know, they called him up, didn't want to mess the event up, took his shot quick as he could. Some people say some foul play behind there. Eddie Hearn jukes the people a little bit, but I'm not sure. I find that quite boring. I didn't spend my money. All I can say is I'm glad it's not me, but if he is, Eddie's a bad man. But at the end of the day, you're right, Joshua. Just tick, 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 tick. Time, it's just going, man. It's his time right now.
Indeed. I go to you quickly, Gus. Listening to UK channels on the YTBC and otherwise, I don't know what's the bigger story here: the fight itself, or the fact that this fight is still going to be will still be a pay-per-view. The controversy surrounding that, Gus. Speak on that right quick.
Yeah, Mike. You know, you're talking about one of the worst cards the Matchroom has ever put out. They've become synonymous for putting that very horrendously bad cards. Eddie Hearn just really doesn't give a fuck about the undercards anymore, Mike. You know, when you've got a pay-per-view fighter who can, you know, generate and sell out any stadium, even any small hall, O2 or near the big hall, big stadiums is pretty much that's the limit to where he's fighting now. But what can you do, Mike? You know, Kubrat Pulev, and it's interesting, Mike. I was chatting with a with a Bulgarian taxi driver and his people know the Pulev's people over in Bulgaria, and you know, he certainly shed a few interesting set of ideas my way. He was almost of the opinion that Pulev has intentionally pulled out, Mike. He's saying that there was no legitimate injury there whatsoever. Pulev, if you recall, Mike, he was a little bit reticent about having this fight at the time of when the scheduled dates were agreed. He felt that there was insufficient time. You know, he was looking for at least 3 months, and this stems back to what this taxi driver was telling me, Mike. You know, he's mentally never recovered after the Klitschko fight, because he did something very uncharacteristic in that fight. You know, he lost his nerve and he tried to bum rush Klitschko and he got knocked out. You know, it's something, you know, that continues to haunt him even to this day as well. So his thought process was that Kubrat Pulev will not go into the ring unless he is 100% mentally and physically there. And so there was always doubt as to whether he was going to go ahead with this fight. You know, I certainly had my doubts. You know, when they announced it with that, you know, with a month and a half, I was thinking, "Ooh, that's a little bit uncanny." Because if you remember, Eddie Hearn last year, Mike actually went over to Germany and tried to make the fight then, but Pulev certainly wasn't interested in the fight. So he declined his opportunity back then. And once we know fighters who have that mental fragility, Mike, you know, it's something that almost just tends to remain with them. They tend to pull out of fights or just make excuses. So that trait has just followed him now, which is a pity because it was quite an interesting fight. I thought Pulev, you know, because he tends to stay back a little bit, I thought he would have posed a bit of a more of a difficult equation for Joshua. But, you know, the contingency plan has come in. You know, I think Eddie Hearn pretty much knew because they gave Takam the green light to go ahead and start sort of commence his training when they announced, you know, Pulev as the opponent. So he's stayed in shape. So he's got his call. I don't know exactly how ready he looks, but he looks quite confident, quite happy. You know, very sort of euphoric and optimistic at the press conferences. But size is going to be a difference in this fight. You know, I don't think he's got the physicality. Very, very durable, tough fighter. He gave Joseph Parker a hell of a fight. Very, very close fight, that one. You know, you could always make a case that, you know, Takam, you know, maybe should have edged out a decision. You know, I thought Parker maybe edged it slightly, but you can't disagree with anybody who thought Takam had the fight. But there's also a part of me is almost thinking, Mike, that it's just, you know, just sometimes has the shades of that Hasim Rahman Lennox Lewis as well on it. You know, when you get a fighter who's just, you know, inconspicuous, just sort of comes in, you know, you don't really know too much about him. You haven't got too much time to study him. He's shorter as well, much like Hasim Rahman, just can get inside the pocket and just crack those mean, you know, overhand rights. You know, so maybe it's worth a little hedge on the surprise knockout.
I don't know. To me, that situation with Rahman and Lewis was as much about Lewis, who came in overconfident, cocky as all hell. Just lazy in the way he fought and his approach. I don't see that, or I haven't seen that from the clips and the videos I've seen of Joshua beforehand. So it could happen, but I think Josh, and plus Lennox Lewis was much later on in his career. I don't think Joshua is as complacent as Lewis was going into that fight. So in short, I think because of the situation with Joshua in comparison to the situation with Lewis then, I just don't see Joshua putting himself in that position physically and from a mental standpoint in terms of preparation that he's going to allow himself to get caught. And particularly what he knows is possibly up for him upcoming. Fighters who are that young, that hungry, that ambitious, they're not going to slip up. So I just don't see it. I just don't see it, Gus.
I think the punch in this fight for Joshua is going to be the uppercut, Mike.
Yeah,
Way Takam actually comes in with his head. Yeah, his head is almost down. I think that the uppercut, certainly to split the guard to go right through. That could be the one for him.
I see, Gail, you're back. Your thoughts on the Anthony Joshua Takam fight showcase bout?
I'm pleased that there is a fight. It's not the fight we thought we were going to see. It's certainly not the fight we hoped we were going to see, but it does get Joshua back in the ring before 2017 comes to an end, and I'm very glad for that, despite anything you want to say about the opponent, the level, whatever it is. Fans are going to get to see him again. They're going to be reminded why we were so excited about him earlier in the year and why he took the boxing world by storm after his fight with Klitschko. The boxing memory fades quickly in the fan, and it wouldn't have been good for Joshua for this card to fall apart, despite having every right to say, well, my year is done after the debacle with Ortiz. Good for him. Good for his crew. They put together a fight. It's a reasonable fight. Puncher's chance, of course. And as I've already heard discussed, he can't overlook it. He has to do his due diligence, dot the I, cross the T. There really is a little more pressure on him to put on a good performance after his last spectacular performance earlier in the year. So he needs to put on a show. He needs to do more than win. He needs to put on a show. And I am looking forward to seeing him again.
Let's kind of group all the undercard bouts into one here. Dillian Whyte fighting Helenius, Kal Yafai fighting Ishida, Katie Taylor getting her first opportunity, world title shot, against a lady by the name of Sanchez. I just open up for anyone here. Well, I'll go to you, Gus, since you talked about your disgust at the undercard. So talk about these these fights on the undercard.
Mike, is it worth even getting any time? Come on, Dillian Whyte against Robert Helenius, Mike. What the hell is that? He's come off fighting a guy called Malcolm Tan, who was on a hiatus for 7 years, if I'm not mistaken. What when he made his US debut. Now he's fighting, Robert Helenius. The guy, I think Derek Chisora fought him when the Vikings were still in power. It's just, it's a, that's a rubbish, Mike. I think he didn't. I think one of Povetkin's victims, Johan Duopas, I think, KO'd his ass as well over in Helsinki. Yeah.
Coming off of that loss with the that knockout loss to Wilder. So yeah.
Yeah, and this just, Mike, it just almost begs the question, why on earth did Eddie Hearn even sign Dillian Whyte? We've heard all of this talk that he just seems to be his spare tire, just sort of utilizing him here and there. It's just absolutely no direction whatsoever. Just a nonsense fight, But I'm hearing it's a replacement because it was going to be Marius Vuk first of all for Dillian.
Why did they sign Dillian Whyte? Conspiracy theory says to me that he beats this guy. Wilder wins against Stavern, and Hearn tries to push for a Wilder Whyte fight in 2018.
Dillian is ranked quite high, within the WBC. When he fought Derek Chisora and he got the decision, if I'm not mistaken, that wasn't a final eliminator, but it was an eliminator of sorts.
Yes.
He was. So I think his ranking was behind Stavern. I think he might have been about number 3 or 4 possibly 3. So yeah, if he's retained that position, given that he hasn't lost a fight, one would assume so, but he has not really bought anybody of any note in these last 2 fights. So the offer that they claimed, £4 million for Deontay, whatever. Mike, I don't believe any of that rubbish. You've only got to look at the purses of both fighters. I think Deontay's highest purse has only been 1.2 million against Ariola. So if Eddie is going to pay Deontay Wilder £4 million, that could have only been a headline card. He certainly could have been. Couldn't have been on a pay-per-view with Josh or any other pay-per-view star, because they're clearly not going to make the split sort of 4 ways like that. So I don't know what the hell they're talking about there. That didn't make any sense to me whatsoever. Do you really want to see Dillian Whyte and Deontay Wilder? Personally, I don't think Deontay Wilder needs to fight Dillian Whyte, Mike. I think he needs to get rid of Bermane Stiverne ASAP, and the fight after that should be him and Joshua, period. I wouldn't take any fight. I don't know if he's he hasn't got much time with that hand, Mike. He's just got to make the most of his opportunities now.
Thoughts on Yafai, the fight against Ishida, as well as Katie Taylor getting her first title opportunity?
Yafai and Ishida might be probably the better fight on the card, Mike. I don't know whether it's a genuine 50-50 fight, but certainly Ishida definitely poses some challenges to Yafai. Kal, I don't know whether weight is starting to be a factor with him as well, Mike. He's come down originally from bantamweight to flyweight, but there's talking about that he's not starting to get a little bit difficult for his body to maintain 115, given that he's naturally bigger at that weight. I'll see tomorrow when the weigh-in happens. If he doesn't make the weight comfortably, then I might even go to Ishida. I think Ishida's good with both hands, Mike. Very, very good jab. Can pepper the body as well. Don't like the way sometimes he drops his hands. Yafai is a very good counter-puncher, very strong. He targets the body heavily as well. Could be a bit of a body punching festival, Mike. Definitely the best fight on the card. I would still lean towards Yafai. I think he's definitely the more talented fighter, but it's just coming down to this weight issue. If he's extremely weight drawn, then his body is going to be susceptible, and I think Ishida is a very good body puncher. Certainly could target that area, so could be a potential shock there, Mike. I'll let you know tomorrow on the weigh-in, see what these guys are like, man.
Yeah, based on what I've seen of Ishida, I have to agree with you. Seeing Katie Taylor, her opponent, and I'm sorry, based on what I've seen of Sanchez, not only Katie Taylor, she should win, but she should win rather comfortably. Wouldn't be surprised if Katie Taylor stops Anaya Sanchez. That's just my opinion based on what I've seen. I wasn't impressed at all. Katie Taylor too fast with hands and feet. Her skill is a level above. I just think she will be too much for her. I'll go to you, Gail. Your breakdown of this undercard of Joshua and Takam.
I agree. Not much to add to what Gus said. Katie Taylor shouldn't have any trouble. I suggest that you watch her body work. She's a fine body puncher. We were just talking about the spectacular body shot knockout from Murat Gassiev earlier in this discussion tonight. Katie knows how to go to the body. That's going to serve her well. And more top-level women are taking that approach. And they didn't always do that. They did not always put the proper body work in. And not only does Katie and the last person I saw deliver some sensational body work was here in Southern California, Sneezia Estrada. her last fight, her body work just had suddenly gone to another level. I like to see the ladies do that because we all know you invest in that body work, the rest of the fight goes much easier. And when the women are, in the fights where women are still only fighting 2-minute rounds, they have got to do that. Otherwise, the knockout percentages for women overall tend to be lower because of the shorter rounds. It doesn't look that impressive. And when you're trying to build that fan base, people like knockouts. So until we can get them going 3 full minutes, which they need to do, I'll keep repeating that till I have no breath left to do so. This is how they're going to have to fight. So hopefully she gets a title and fine style. She's every equivalent of a seasoned professional given her pedigree and her amateur record. So I think it'll be not a cakewalk, but a fairly easy fight for her.
Aren't there a couple of ladies within that division is already calling Katie Taylor out? Their name escapes me right now. If you can remember, Gail, could you give me some insight on that?
Yeah, it's interesting. The women's divisions are just not as deep as the men's, and they have essentially the same weight divisions all along. I mean, a woman welterweight lightweight is a woman lightweight. Same as the men, same pound range. So Katie is a lightweight and obviously is ranked #1 in the division, but you don't get very deep into the division before you start running out of names. Pardon me, she's ranked #1 in Great Britain. She's still only ranked #9 overall because her lack of record. The #1 ranked fighter as a lightweight is a Belgian woman named Delphine Persoon. That's who's really been clawing, that's chewing her ass. Want her. Yeah, she really wants to get a piece of her. There's also a young American lightweight named Jessica McCaskill out of Chicago, who I don't think is anywhere near ready for Katie, but she's expressed interest. In this division, you also have this big sort of block of Argentinians, and that's where Esther Sanchez is from. Sanchez is rated above Katie because of her longevity in the division. She's 17-2. So you've got those ladies all making a lot of noise. Just talk about, some of the big names from the other divisions crossing over and, why don't they move up and down to make fights? It's the same issue as the men. It's just not that easy. It's not just weight. It's the height. It's the body size. It's not that easy to do. Even when it only sounds like 10 pounds, that's a lot in between divisions. It's the same issue in the middleweight division where Claressa Shields is going to run out of opponents amazingly fast before she works her way to the top. Now she's got I would say a boogeyman for anybody else. She's got a boogie woman at the top of that division waiting for her. Hammer. Yeah, in the form of Christina Hammer, who wants to put the hammer down. And Claressa needs more fights before she does that. She absolutely does. But, she could fight someone like Maricela Cornejo, who's based in Los Angeles, who's extremely well-liked, who would take her on in a heartbeat. And, we'll see what fights can be made. But Katie Taylor, if you don't think you like watching women's boxing, Katie Taylor is one of those women's professionals who could change your mind.
Indeed. I think we're going to start to shut the show down on that note. I'll go around the panel here, starting going back to you, Gail. For folks who want to talk the sweet science, for those who want to talk Dancing with the Stars, which you were in the building last night.
I was there Monday night. Yes, I was.
Monday night.
I was. And I'll tell you a 30-second story. So my escort for the evening is a 30-year career Marine, and he was in dress uniform. He was getting a lot of attention, and he's an attention whore, so it's great. He loves it. And he's being meet and greet. Everybody's very nice to him. Thank you for your service. A lot of handshakes, celebrities, this and that approaching him. And just before we're getting ready to go live, I'm not really looking at him, out of the corner of my eye, I see somebody approach him, and it's like the 50th person in 2 hours, so I wasn't even paying attention. And I could tell they're chit-chatting it up and having a great old time. And I look over, and it's John Cena.
Wow.
Who couldn't have been a nicer guy. And then he walks away, and my buddy looks at me, and he said, "Who is that again?"
Wow.
And he got smacked upside the head for that. I said, "John Cena? You know John Cena? All this." So I had to. It's a good thing I really didn't see him, because I would not have probably played as cool as I did. So nice crew, folks. And for anybody who ever gets the opportunity to be in the Los Angeles area, it's to your advantage to try to find one of the many productions going on. They need audiences. They need butts in the seats. And it's a really fun thing to do, and it's free. So get your ass in there. Anyway, Communities Digital News, COM, COMM, Digi, DIGI News.com. That's all you need to know. I
want to thank Scorsese for joining us on the show earlier. If you want to check him out on YouTube, his boxing channel, you can follow him, low place, #MLPF. If you want to check him out on Twitter, you can follow him on Twitter at MyLowPlace, one word, MYLOWPLACE. That's where to find him on Twitter and on G Plus YouTube. Gus from Corruption in Boxing. For folks who want to talk to Sweet Science, for those who want to talk music or anything else, let the folks know where they can hit you up.
Yeah, Mike, very quickly, can I mention one significant fight that took place in the UK over the weekend?
Okay, please.
Yeah, there was a Frank Warren card from Leeds, England, took place on Saturday night, and the headline card was at featherweight, Josh Warrington against the European champion Denis Sejan.
Number one contender for Lee Selby.
Yeah, that fight had implications. Now, you may recall that Josh Warrington, he declined a fight with Jojo Diaz on the Canelo Golovkin undercard.
Yes.
So he's always been trying to pursue a fight with Lee Selby when he was with Matchroom. So now he becomes his mandatory. So because he's changed promoters to Frank Warren now. So one thing about him, Mike, he may be fairly limited as a fighter, but he's a big money draw in Leeds. So for Lee, financially, it certainly would be, a good fight for him. I think Lee, it was a good. To be fair to him in this fight, Mike, he did stop the guy, for a guy who, doesn't have sufficient punch power, and we know Josh in his last fight against Kiko Martinez, who's been pretty much beaten up by all of his counterparts in the division. I think he struggled quite badly, and I certainly had the fight for Kiko Martinez, so he was very fortunate to have prevailed from that fight, but he was a lot better in this fight. Denis Sejan was a good opponent who'd beaten Ryan Walsh, the brother of Liam Walsh, who lost against Tank Davis. That fight took place in Denmark as well. So he was a reasonably good fighter with Olympic pedigree with him. Josh did quite well. He definitely looked a lot better, but he's a small featherweight. He doesn't really have the height. And against Lee Selby, Mike, I think Lee's just technically a far better boxer. Keep him at range as well, but it's a fight both guys have been talking about, so I think it makes sense. And even on the undercard, there was potentially it was a mouth-watering all-British fight, but it didn't quite materialize. But a fighter perhaps to look out for, 140 pounds, Jack Catterall, who defeated Tyrone Nurse, the British 140 champion. Tyrone had, quite a veteran, was in his 37, 38 fight, reasonably good record, but Jack as a southpaw, very, very good boxer. I think he's about 17-0 now, so he's perhaps one to look out for in maybe a year's time when he starts getting, to the sort of world levels. He can certainly fight at the fringe world level now. I think he's definitely got some ability, but yeah, that was pretty much it.
Indeed, indeed. For those who want to talk boxing, for those who want to talk music, let them know where to find you.
Sure. Yeah, if you folks want to talk boxing, can find me on hit me up on Skype, on YouTube, various hangouts. Just look out for Corruption in Boxing. Music-wise, doing a lot of separate projects on the underground side, doing a lot of reviews. Got a channel writing for Beatport and Juno as well. The channel is Covert Operative.
I mean, as I want to reiterate something I said before the show. Our thoughts and our prayers go out to regular on the show Daniel from the Inscriber magazine. As I stated to begin the show, that found out that his father passed away. So on behalf of Gail, on behalf of Gus, on behalf of Scorsese, Pound for Pound Boxing Report again sends our condolences and best wishes and thoughts and prayers to him and his family as he's going through this tough, troubling time. For those who want to talk the sweet science, for those who want to talk music, for those who want to talk fitness, if you want to check me out, you can follow me on Twitter at Brother JR, at Brother JR76. As I said to begin the show, if you want to find out all things regarding Pound for Pound Boxing Report, the blog page is the place to go to. P4P Boxing Report .wordpress.com. Check the Rather page. You can find links to our channels and our pages on YouTube, G+, Twitter, and Tumblr. You can check the Pound for Pound Boxing Report on Twitter at P4P Boxing Report. Also on the right of the blog page, you can find links to where to listen to us on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play Music, Player FM, Stitcher Radio, and Mixcloud. And since I'm in this fitness thing, November 6th is the date, my first fitness, Beachbody Fitness Accountability Challenge. I may do a month, I may do a 2-week challenge free. So if you check out the blog page, you can find the links to my personal fitness page. Or if you want to get in contact with me about participating in a fun fitness challenge, you can check me out on Twitter again, Brother JR76, or you can send me a DM on Pound for Pound Boxing. So yeah, episode 187 for Gail, for Scorsese, for Gus. Again, keep your head up, Daniel. I'm your host, Michael. We will see you next time. Next week, what we will do a recap of the Joshua Takam card, as well as do a preview of Deontay Wilder Bermane Laverne rematch. Sean Porter fighting Granados on the undercard. Also do on HBO, Dimitri Bivol. He's going to be fighting in Monte Carlo on that card, as well as a rematch between Jamie McDonald, Librado Solis. Scott Quigg is going to fight on that Monte Carlo card too, as well as Luis Neri, following his win over Yamanaka, being subsequently stripped. He's going to be fighting in Tijuana, so we will talk about all of those fights. So for Gail, look for Community Digital News. For Gus from Corruption in Boxing, for Scorsese, I'm your host, Michael. This has been episode 187 of the Pound for Pound Boxing Report. We will see you next time. Everyone have a good evening. Good night.
Good night.
R.I.P. Terry Downs.
Indeed, indeed.